Funky Comadima. Oh.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to this conversation with, I'm going to butcher your name, Jeff Dwoskin.
Close. I mean,
Give me, where was
we
I
only talked
wrong?
for 10 minutes. You could have asked. No, I'm just kidding. Dwoskin.
Oh, I was going to go with Dwoskin, and I thought for sure it's not Dwoskin, it's Dwoskin. Oh, well, I ruined that one. He is at jeffisfunny.com. He is pop culture expert at this point, right? Would you say that? How many of the 10,000 hours do you have in for pop culture expert?
I think I'm 100,000 in.
There 10 times. So he's a 10x pop culture expert. And
Yeah.
I was trying to remember where I ran into you at, Jeff, and I couldn't today. I need to take better notes when I'm doing these things, but I happened upon you and I thought, hey, this guy looks really interesting. He's so your background is varied quite a bit. First of all, you're from Michigan, and I think you still live in Michigan. Am I right?
Correct.
So you're a Michigander?
I'm a Michigander. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that alone, I mean, so I'm in St. Louis. We are, what would you call that? We're vertical from each other, right? So straight up Michigan.
St. Louis is great. You got Enterprise Rent-A-Car down there.
That's right. Yeah. What have you got there? So, well, we got Enterprise Rent-A-Car. If you need a car, they're all here.
We have Motown.
Yeah, I think you got us beat on some of these things. We got the Arch. Who cares?
We got the Mackinac Bridge.
There you go. Mackinac. Got Mackinac Island. You got
sand dunes.
Yeah, you got a place where they don't let people drive a car, which is amazing. Considering that you can drive a car just about anywhere. Yeah, I mean, it's good. We got the highest murder rate per capita.
Awesome.
That's a good. That's a good. We've been bumped off by Camden, New Jersey, I think a couple times, but we're somewhere in the top 10.
Right. I mean, you don't want to be second.
Right. Yeah, but we've been number one a couple of times, I know, within the last few years, because I keep seeing it on my feed, because it's like, oh, you're in St. Louis. Guess what? People die there randomly. So yeah,
I don't think it's not random. I don't think.
Well,
random is just people going.
well, you never driven on the highway, so. No, I don't. It may not be that random. I don't know. But there was a person who was just firing guns off while they were driving down the highway. So that's kind of random.
Yeah, that
not is. Not to bringing everything down, Jeff. Bring us back up. So you're a Michigander. You are the pop culture, 10x pop culture expert. But you're also a programmer. Is that right? Or some type of a social media, whiz kid.
Not like a programmer, but I am a product strategist, digital strategist.
Yeah, so I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I just
you're like, is that like a sanitation engineer? That sounds a little constructed to me.
No, it just means like I don't know how to literally program it. I just know how to say these pieces should do this.
Nowadays, AI, I mean, it's on the way. You're going to be able to do it. Jeff, I have faith that this is going to be, by the end of this year, you will be a programmer in some way, shape, or form.
Don't be totally fooled by some of those sites. I mean, they have to advance a lot, because here's the thing. Like, if you want to talk AI for half a second, but like when you build one of those things, you just can't change it. Right? Gotcha. I mean, like, you can't just easily change it, and like a lot of times it has to be connected to a database, and it's got to do this, and it's so there's a little bit you got to. It's not totally code free.
All that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, go tell your programmer you're gonna hand him one of those code-free things and see how long he doesn't quit.
Oh, and apparently you're an HR expert as well. So there you go.
I am.
And you're a comedian as well. Is that correct?
I have done stand-up comedy for quite some time. Yes.
So out of all these things, I mean, obviously you're kind of a Renaissance kind of guy, as they would say. Out of all these things, which one is your favorite?
Which is my favorite?
Yeah, which is your favorite?
I think I love them all, and so I kind of juggle. I
Oh,
only kind of do. But if I
these
were to
aren't
pick, I think,
children. Come on, let's just go. Just
I
be
mean, if I were to
brutal.
pick, I mean, on a day-to-day basis, I like being the technical guru guy. But when I'm on stage doing comedy, then there's nothing better than that.
Oh, okay. So you kind of, it's like a duality of sorts.
Right. I'm like
Yeah.
Batman, but without, you know,
So wait a minute. Okay. So is your comedy very grim?
no,
Why,
I just,
why'd the chick across the road?
to get to the other side.
So, I mean, that's to be the Batman side of it. I don't know. Maybe you're
Right.
that way in the for the social media stuff.
I just mean dual personalities.
Yeah, you're like Instagram's going downhill. Um, no, that's interesting though. But so you kind of juggle all these different things. Which one would you say you have to do the most of out of that combination of things?
Comedy, I don't do as much anymore. Just after COVID, I kind of chilled on it a bit, and it
Hmm.
just uh, COVID. A lot of people got creative during COVID, and there was like 500 more comedians at the end of it. So I just I kind of backed off of that a little bit, and then so I mean, the majority of my day is my company called Stampede.social, but like, and then I do the podcast where I interview pop culture folks,
Hmm.
so, maybe there's some weeks I'll do one interview, a couple, sometimes I'll do two, it
Yeah.
depends. It's a weird group that I interview because it's like, it's whenever they say yes, I'll do it. You know what I mean? So it's not, I
Put it in
can,
my
I can
schedule when they say yes.
I can
That's my
try and spread
schedule.
it
Yeah.
out. Some of
Yeah.
them are really old or much older, so it's like I don't put those off. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right.
let's get that. Let's take
So,
care of
what are
that.
you trying to say? You have a whole pile of things that are released on certain days that the news breaks or something like that?
No, but I do have I have lots and lots of episodes unreleased. If anything were to happen to me right
Really?
now, there'd be lost episodes for months.
From oh wow. Now that's a good question. So I have never understood that, right? So I've been doing this for quite some time, and I don't understand the caching of all of the content. What's your thoughts on why you have such a cache of stuff in the backdrop there?
Um, it's not that I'm proud of it or anything. Let me first say that it's partially because of the answer to the thing I just randomly said, which was, if I reach out, I put out one episode a week. Okay,
Mhm.
so, but if I record two a week, right, so then that creates a backlog, right?
Right.
And so if I do that month after month, then I continuously have a backlog.
Oh, I see.
And then the
So you're
benefit to having a backlog is I can then choose the order I want to release them.
Mhm.
So, meaning like if I talk to a bunch of comedians and I talk to a bunch of, maybe actors from this or, people from that, I can then I have the luxury of not doing five comedians in a row just because I happen to interview five comedians in a row because
oh,
they said yes. So there's that. When I interview people, I try and keep it evergreen.
mhm.
So even if we did something today and I were to release it tomorrow, I would try to remove any specific references that you make to a specific point in time, unless it's a very generic, like, like if you say like tomorrow is Ringo Starr's birthday, maybe I'd leave that because, Ed, if you want to look that up, I guess, what I
Yeah.
mean, but like, but oh yeah, but this Memorial Day, but I release it in January. Or like, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? Like
Sure.
those things that can remove you from the moment, I'll
Mhm.
kind of take out. Or the things
Yeah, like
that
you might have a tornado today, or several people might have a tornado today, tonight, into tomorrow.
I
Which,
yeah, that's true. That's true. I well, like I released an episode that I mean, I'm embarrassed to say it. It was a couple weeks ago, but like I recorded in 2020, and so
a lot of COVID references in that one, huh?
so I took most of them out, like a
Really?
lot of them out. Like I took out a lot, and so
Jeff, I can't smell anything. What's wrong? Jeff,
well, not like that, but like, but you know, they were
this
talking about
banana
things.
tastes like plastic.
I didn't want someone to be able to hear it now. I want you to be able to listen to an episode I did 2 years ago anyway,
Mhm.
and just enjoy it in the moment and not be like, oh, this was dated.
So I think we should add curator to your list
Yeah.
of
Like
jobs now.
I don't specifically interview people that have a new show coming out. It's not that I don't or wouldn't. It's
Mhm.
not my primary. I don't get into those PR cycles that some people do where they're like, you know, where they talk to someone, you know, it's like, well, my show is coming out tomorrow on Amazon.
Right.
Great. And, you
Yeah.
know, and then you're listening to 2 years from now, and that show didn't go anywhere.
Right.
It's like, and it's like, you know what I'm
Thing's
saying?
a bomb. Yeah.
I mean,
Who's that
it's one
guy?
thing if you're like just mentioning it. And it's like a lot of times it's based around people writing books. But books, you know, books are like podcasts. Once you release it, it exists forever. So it
Right.
doesn't really,
Yeah.
well, you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
Right.
no, I know what you're saying.
And so it's like, you know, it's sometimes like, you know, if you're talking about, you know, oh, hey, yeah, we're about to shoot season 2 of The Sopranos, you know.
Well,
I
actually,
mean?
that brings me to another question for you, because the interesting thing is you're talking about being evergreen, right? But the realities are that some things are not always evergreen, right? So, for instance, as I was perusing your website, I saw that you had not one but two of the sons from My Three Sons, right? And I'm not picking on these guys because I did watch that show in syndication a long time ago. But, you know, that was a huge show during its day and through probably up until the 90s. It was still playing regularly and probably still plays regularly somewhere. But now it's kind of, you know, it's fallen off a bit. If I say My Three Sons, people would be like, "What? What are you talking about? Are you talking about My Two Dads? No. Are you talking about, you know, two? What was it?
Two and a
Two and
half
a
men.
Half Men? Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So it's interesting because I saw that and I was impressed. I'll be honest with you. I'm like, wow, I got to talk to Ernie. But the other side of it, as you're just talking there, I'm like, well, but you know, the Ernieites are getting to be fewer.
Well, Bob, happy to know I have one more interview coming from that show. But
I'm sorry.
no, I'm just saying, but like it's evergreen in the sense of the conversation that I'm having. So the whole point of my podcast is to talk to people from the shows that I watched when I
Right.
grew up. That's the whole
Sure.
point. I always like to say they were really famous when they were famous.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so they've done some of them have done actually Barry Livingston, Ernie, who you mentioned, who you're a fan of. He's still acting. Like he's like one of those. That was an interesting thing about him. He's like one of those actors, you know, like Jodie Foster, Kurt Russell, you know, like that were from that time that even still act to this day.
Right. Yeah.
But the idea was like, to me, evergreen, what I mean by that is like, we don't necessarily talk at the end about, oh, I got this thing coming out in a month, or you know, because most of the time that conversation is, I got something coming out, but I can't talk about it. Like that,
I'm over-interpreting.
I've learned to avoid those conversations, you know.
Gotcha.
And so,
okay.
Little things like that. Like I interviewed someone once, and they're like, "Yeah, and in October I'm going to a Comic-Con," and I just took that out. But you don't know that I took it out. Nobody knows I took it out. I just mean like the conversation that I have, like with the folks from My Three Sons, the idea of it is, the whole idea of the podcast is that I watch these shows growing up, and it's not always just shows I watch growing up, but I mean that's the core of it. And if anyone that I know who would be interested in things that I'm interested got a chance to talk to them, this would be the conversation that they would have, and they would enjoy it vicariously through me, because I'm actually I'm the one talking to them. Right. So, you know, so that's how I kind of look at the podcast and that kind of thing.
Okay. Yeah, I'm over interpreting evergreen apparently. So
well, evergreen in the sense that the continuity of the moment, right? So it's like, if you're listening to my Judy Tenuta interview, obviously it's not a new interview. She passed away, right? So that had to been done at some particular point in time. But if people
although
are talking,
that could be a whole other show for you, because then you could get William Frawley and Bub and really pile on Fred McMurray.
If you know this much about my three sons, you should be binging my podcast. But you love it. Evergreen to me is something that just like dates it from the time you're listening to it.
Gotcha.
That's what I mean. Like, if we're talking about Christmas, if you're listening to an episode that just released today, and we're talking about Christmas, then I mean, I guess it's all in context. It's all in context of the conversation. I guess it's like, I mean, it's things like that. I don't like it to feel dated. I feel like I want you to feel like, I guess the best way to say it is I want you to feel like you discovered it right now, and it sounds as if
you're in the room.
It's as fresh as it is right now, as possible.
You're on the party line listening in. Good thing I live down the road from Jeff. I get to hear about all these cool things. Well, he's not paying attention. But so that I think that's really interesting, and there is this whole almost I won't say genre necessarily, because it's not a genre in and of itself, but there's been a turn in media, I would say, somewhere in the late 90s into the 2000s, right? So prior to that, the last probably big turn in I'm basically talking about television, was the fact that they went from black and white to color. And so then all these black and white shows still played for quite some time, but then they started phasing them out because everybody wanted to see things in color for the most part, but not totally. And it had to do with syndication and cable. And, so the internet, as it came along, a lot of that went away. You don't have Nick at Night or all these things that used to be in existence that would kind of sop up all of these shows that happened, through the 50s onward into the 80s, right? And so, I mean, because My Three Sons goes back to, what is it, 1959 or 1960 when it started? I'm trying to remember.
It was a black and white show because it was on for like 12 seasons or something.
Yeah, it was I think it was somewhere in there.
Started
it was
black
a black
and white
show.
It did start black and white.
And so, there was all this, there wasn't a lot of content for this emerging cable systems. And that became fodder, right? Because they would have them on 24 hours a day and so forth. And obviously, you and I grew up during this time period and got exposed to all of this content that now people really aren't exposed to that much. If you're even 40, probably, maybe a little bit younger than that, 35, let's say, that's probably not your world. I mean, that's my assessment. What do you, because you're the 10X, guy. So you tell me what your thoughts are on that.
You're right. I should probably quit.
Oh, no, don't. I don't want to be.
No, yeah. I mean, you're right. I mean, there's definitely shows and references. And I think My Three Sons is a good example of one where there's a lot of people that wouldn't know what that show was, unless you're of a certain age, unless you're older. And so, it's, to me, it's interesting to just capture the history of what was, what I mean? And that's sort of nostalgic for me. I don't know that my target is, or that anyone would be specifically interested, in their 20s in this type of thing, unless they were really into old TV or something like that, or something maybe that was they still watch. I know this is true because I know you're right, because I realized a long time ago, like when someone go, who's the most famous person you've talked to? And I would try to answer that question in my context. And then I realized my context doesn't matter to the person who is asking the question to me. So I always say it depends on you, who you think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'll sit there. There was a time, and this has happened more than one time, and now I just do it on purpose because I know it'll happen. It's one of those things. Who's the most famous person you've had on your show, Jeff? Oh, I don't know. I've had Ed Asner or Ed Begley Jr. or Ted Neely, and Ernie, Barry Livingston or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're just like this. I go, um, Carol from the Tiger King. Oh my God, you talked to Carol.
Carol Baskin?
You talked to Carol Baskin. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
You talked to Carol Baskin. It's like, and I'm like, I give up. So
That's interesting though. Well, because yeah, you mentioned this before, you really deal in context. And so context is so important in this regard that if you're not with that context, then it's not going to mean anything to you. You're going to be like, oh, he played Ernie. Who's Ernie? From Sesame Street? And so yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, how that works like that. I wasn't going to ask you who the most famous person that you've talked to was, to be honest with you.
No, I
Enter
wouldn't
my
expect.
mind at all.
I already assumed you thought it was the guys from the My Three Sons, the brothers.
No, that's my interest. I saw that and I'm like, oh, that's fantastic. My thing is that everyone mistakes Charlie Martin Smith for Barry Livingston. And they all think, do you know who Charlie Martin Smith is?
Do I know?
He's an actor who was in The Untouchables, who played the accountant, if you're familiar with that movie.
Yeah. He was in
because
American
they
Graffiti.
look kind of similar. He was American Graffiti, right? They look kind of similar, and everybody always thinks that was Ernie, even though he wasn't. I'm sure he still gets it to this day.
Yeah, they
But
look like they could be
they
like
could be brothers, right? Exactly. But rather than his real brother, who
Stanley.
played Chip, yeah. Which
That's
is odd. Yeah.
So what was I gonna say? What was the question? Oh, but I think one of my the person I interviewed where I felt like, oh, okay, I'm officially a pop culture podcast now.
Okay.
Is when I interviewed Burt Ward.
Oh, okay, yeah, Robin.
Okay, Robin from Batman 66. So that to me was the coolest. Like that was my episode 50 and he came back. But the cool part was they called me and wanted him to come back. So he was back for episode 250. So that was really cool. And so yeah, I had to send him a list. I go, we already talked about these things. We're not talking about them again.
I can't believe you sent Burt Ward a list.
Well, I didn't want him to be surprised. I'm like, so it's like we already covered I didn't want him to think I was being rude, because he does, a ton of interviews. So,
Well, but they asked.
Yeah, that was cool. Yeah. It was cool. And then, yeah, I mean, I've had folks. I love that I've had Isaac Gopher and Doc from the Love Boat, and and like Potsy, Ralph Mouth, Mrs. Cunningham from Happy Days. So it's like I try and get them in groups of 3. I've had 3 people from the Orville, which is one of my favorite shows. I got 3 of them. Don't ask me to say their names because I can't remember off the top of my head. But like,
what was their characters? Because I watched the Orville.
No, I can't remember anything.
Oh gosh, yeah,
I can't remember anything. It's like, but one of them,
Scott Grimes.
I wish I want to get Scott Grimes. I like Scott Grimes a lot. Kato Kalin was great to talk to. I like talking to him.
Really? Kato Kalin as well.
Yeah. We followed each other on Twitter. And so eventually I was able to get him to come on the podcast.
That was going to come. You lead me to my next question, which was, how do you get in contact with these people? I mean, well, Burt Ward, I think he's on the circuit, as it were, right? So he's always going places and doing signings and so my guess is he has some representation still, but some of these folks have been, kind of out of the game for a while and have been leading normal, regular lives and haven't been doing this. And so how do you get in touch with these people?
You'd be surprised. They all still have PR folks.
Really?
They all do.
I wouldn't be paying money to these people, but I did tell
It's
you I
rare,
was
but
cheap and
there's a
lazy. So
whole circuit of the autograph shows where these
Mhm.
folks can probably make some good money. And then yeah, it's
So
usually you
you,
reach out to their publicists or managers. So
oh, really? Okay. So you just basically Google up there, who's Burt Ward's publicist? And then they go, hey, I'm Jeff Dwoskin.
you
And
should come on
you know
my
what?
show.
I'm a
You
Gen
should,
X pop culture guy. So
yes, you should
I
come on
can
my
get
show.
no better than that.
I'm very
Um,
fancy. You should come on my
what's
show.
what's the pitch? Can you give me a quick pitch?
I just, it's gotten easier as it's gone on because now I can just send them I send them, here's a sampling of my 250 plus interviews.
Mhm.
And, then it gets to like, now it's like most of the people, like they know other people on my show. But the thing that my wife loves, um, that was in sarcasm, uh, is when we watch TV
Yeah.
and I go, oh, he was on my podcast. Oh,
Oh,
two people in this scene were on my podcast.
does she care though? That's the question.
No, she doesn't care at all.
Yeah.
She doesn't even
That's
listen.
yeah.
Otherwise,
My
she would have known. And then that they were on my podcast.
yeah, my wife does that to me too. She's
Like
very
yeah,
unimpressed with anything that I've done in my life. So
I understand. Like to your other thing, like I'll book someone on my show that I'm really excited about, and I'll be like, oh my god, I won't say who it is because I don't want to, but like, oh my god, you won't believe I got blah 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 on my show, and they'll be like, who?
that's nice, honey.
I'm like, and they're like, huh? Here's a picture. Oh, I'm
Oh,
like,
it's
and like
Burt Ward.
I like took 6 months and then finally got a yes, and like,
Oh wow,
and they're
six
like,
months. Goodness
or whatever,
gracious.
you know what I mean? There's people that there's a few people that I'll keep trying, but
You're like hound. You're after these things. Wow. That's
I'm
where the
not a hound.
lazy
I
parts
send it
comes in.
out if like a few months later I might try again type thing. Sometimes it's just
Okay, not like every day or anything.
no, to go God no. It's
Stalker. Mm.
I do get some of that. I get people doing that to me, it's like, my favorite is like when they're like
By the way,
Jeff.
that's how I got Jeff to do this show. I just stalked him relentlessly, and he finally just said, "Who are you?
I'm
What?"
like, get off my porch. I'll do I but yeah, some people say yes right away. Some people like say like when like I reached out to David Zucker. He was, Zaz,
Mhm,
Zucker, Abrams, Zucker. They did
mhm.
Airplane, they directed
Airplane,
Airplane.
yeah.
They created parody comedy basically.
Top secret.
Top Secret, The Naked Gun, Police Squad, and many more. And so when he replied back, he's like, yeah, I'll do your podcast. I'm like, ah. And I was like, his feelings on the new Naked Gun movie were
Right.
actually on my podcast a month before
Mm,
TMZ broke it. It's like
really?
I missed
Wow.
out on that one. But
What was he not looking forward to it or what?
well, they just didn't ask him to do it.
Oh, they just did it. They must own
Yeah.
the IP or whatever, and they just
Yeah.
said,
And
"Yeah, we'll
so
do it." Yeah.
yeah, so but when he replied back, I'm like, sometimes they reply back and they go, yes, for sure. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, now I gotta prepare, so but then that's the fun part.
Well, so, well, how do you prepare? I mean, do you just rely on your endless, boundless knowledge that you've stuffed away over these
No, I don't count on
decades?
any memory whatsoever. We all have
IMDb?
we all have vague memories. I'll give you the gist of what I do is so David Zucker. This is how I prepared for David Zucker.
Mhm.
I rewatched Airplane. That's one. And
Yeah.
he had just wrote a book called Surely You Can't Be Serious with Jerry Abrams and his brother. And so
Mhm.
I got that book and I read it.
Wow.
And
You're outlaying some cash here at this point.
it's from the library. And
Oh, okay.
so I always go to the library first.
Man
And
after
then,
my own heart.
well,
Thank you.
sometimes if people have books, I mean, it depends when in the book. You can ask for they'll send me a PDF of it or something.
Right. Yeah. Screener or whatever, like
Right,
the
yeah. And
equivalent. Yeah.
so for him, I got it from the library though. And if I can get it from the library, I'll do that so I don't have to bother them. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so read the book, take notes while I'm reading it, because how else do you remember certain things? And then I use that as a basis. I'll go to Wikipedia. Don't everyone's a record, yeah, but I use it as a rough guide of things that happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then I go to IMDb, like you mentioned, and then I find those particular pieces, and then I'll deep dive into those particular pieces. You know what I mean? So
That's
I've
a
only
lot of
been
work,
burned. I've
Jeff.
only been burned on Wikipedia, by the way, one time.
Really?
And I'll tell you what
You
it
want to
was.
share what it was? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So it was. I was talking to. Oh my gosh, why am I blanking on her name? Hang on. The woman from Austin Powers.
Which woman? Heather Graham?
No, the evil one.
The evil woman?
I don't want to do her voice. But
Oh, the lady who talks kind of like a German?
German. Yeah, yeah. Oh, Mindy Sterling. Mindy Sterling. So,
No, Mary Sterling. That's not
okay.
the one I was thinking of. Is that her name?
Yeah.
Mindy
She's
Sterling?
Frau Brissina. Yeah.
Frau Brist. Okay. I didn't
Yeah,
realize.
yeah.
Okay.
That's Mindy Sterling. So I
I
apologize.
thought her name was something else.
But now I'm trying to remember why I brought up her name.
Because Wikipedia.
Oh, Wikipedia. Why the thing I got wrong. So there's a different Mindy Sterling that wrote the theme song to Family Ties.
Oh, really?
Now, sometimes.
Wow. So you said, hey, did you write?
Well, sometimes I don't do bits, but sometimes if I find something in the moment, the inspiration strikes. So I think I went all in on this one particular piece because I really wanted it to be true. I think I had the lyrics down. It was something. And
I'm trying to remember
no,
the
that's
theme
not
song.
me. That's not me. That's somebody else. They won't take it out. So.
Oh man! And you just what did you release it that way, or did you cut that?
I can't remember. I probably left it in actually.
Really? Because now you perpetuated it.
Well, no, because she said it wasn't true.
I know, but people don't listen that long. They just thought, oh, right.
They listen that long to mine, according to my YouTube stats. It fell right into that 13-minute and 32-second.
Oh, okay, good deal.
So, yeah.
We got proof.
But no, you don't go by way. But it's like when you're doing research, you get as many pieces as you can. And like I'll do Google search for articles, or if there's like Austin Powers, I'll specifically, like for Mindy Sterling, I'll say her name and Austin Powers, and sometimes unique stuff will come up. You can find old stuff on Pinterest, or you can find. I'd say the best thing to do when you're preparing for an interview is find the oldest interview they've ever done and listen to it.
The first interview, yeah.
Well, because it's a good chance they haven't talked about any of that stuff in a long time, and they'll be like, "Oh, wow, this stuff never comes up." And I tell you, that's my biggest trick right there.
I was in Fiddler on the Roof in Michigan. Theater.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so it's a lot of times, like if you listen to people that they interview. Like I was interviewing Fred Grandy, and he's Gopher from Love Boat.
He was also a senator, I believe, wasn't he?
He was for a few years.
So Senator Grandy, let's give him the due there.
There's a funny part of my thing where I said, "Okay, Fred, here's 3 things that you put in front of Congress," and I read 2 were real, and the third one was like. But I wrote it like it was real. Like it's illegal to physically take apart a Rubik's Cube and put it back together and tell people that you actually did it. Solved it, right? And he's like, I'm like, Fred, I totally made that up. He goes, oh, we sign things all the time. We don't.
I'm a rubber stamp senator, by the way.
Yeah, things come up all the time. It's hard to
Iowa, we don't really care about most of this. I just say, yeah, whatever you want to do. I'm cutting deals. Yeah, you're mad about the Rubik's Cube. I'll sign that if you make corn the only thing that everyone eats.
Right, exactly. So when I was listening to an interview of his, he mentioned the show Monster Squad, which kind of got.
Oh, I was just going to mention that.
But I could tell by the way he was talking about it, he loved it. But it got skipped over because it went to something else. So I went to YouTube and like I watched a couple episodes of Monster Squad, which is an interesting show if you want to watch it. It's
I watched it. I watched it as a kid.
yeah, it's kind of Batman-ish. You know, you can see where the inspiration came from Batman, or the same people did it. You know, with like with the his little Batcave-ish area that he has.
Right.
But yeah, then we talked about that for a little bit. You know, so then I find if you can find things that they aren't used to talking about, or you can go a little deeper on something, it triggers then a bunch of other things that they didn't remember that they remembered also. And so you can start to get some good conversations going.
Yeah, I love the Monster Squad. I thought that was so cool.
That was fun. That was pre-Love Boat. That's
yeah. That was he was very young. I think that was like one of his very
Fred
early
Randy
things.
worked at a wax museum, and then at night they bring Frankenstein, the Wolfman, Mummy.
Night at the Museum before there was Night at the Museum.
Exactly. That's probably where they got it.
Look at it that way. Yeah. Well, everybody's rips off everybody. That's just part of the way it goes. And now with AI, we just rip people off quicker.
Exactly.
That's fascinating though. And so it sounds like, so if you had to think back, what was, as a kid, talking about pop culture and things like that, what was your, because we're kind of focusing on television, you seem to be very television centric about these things. What was your favorite television show that you watched, when, especially in this, you know, kind of nostalgia based area?
So Twilight Zone would be the show that I love the most.
Original, because there's been several incarnations.
They don't exist to me. The I love the Twilight Zone. I got my shelf over there. It's a half of one shelf is all Twilight Zone stuff. I succeeded, but it took 4 years almost to get Anne Serling. It's Rod Serling's daughter, who had written a book about her father, on my podcast last December for Rod Serling's 100th birthday. What would have been the celebration of his 100th birthday, with another Twilight Zone author. And then I had always had this book called The Twilight Zone Companion. And I'm going back when I was young, watching it as well. And there were points in my life where I had this book memorized. It was Twilight Zone Companion is one of the early TV books where it talked about every episode and all that kind of stuff.
Right, yeah.
And so when I'm talking to Anne Serling, I'm like, oh, you know, Mark, can't remember his last name off the top of my head, but like, Mark, you know him? And he's like, oh yeah, because she mentioned him a couple of times. And like, I'm like, could you introduce me to him? I would love to talk to him for the show. And so I haven't actually released it yet. So here's a spoiler. But I did.
Oh my God. I'm cutting that. It's not evergreen.
It's not evergreen. So it's it's fine. So yeah, but that was like some ones like that where maybe really, Jeff, another Twilight Zone episode. It was like, but to me, it was like, this was a big deal to me. You know what I mean? Like I talked to Judy Carter once. She's a comedian, and I reached out to her and I said, look, this was early on. And I said, you wrote this book, the Comedy Bible. And it's, you know, I can't even use it anymore because it tore it to pieces. You know what I mean? It's like, it fell apart. I'd love to interview you on my podcast. And this is when I knew this is the thing. This is literally what she said to me, which changed my framing of how I reached out and all that kind of stuff. She goes, oh, well, I see you have Bruce Valanche on your podcast. If any podcast is good enough for Bruce Valanche, I'm happy to do it. So I'm like, oh, past guests matter. Okay.
Yeah. So you're the guy who has a girlfriend to get a new girlfriend, is what you're saying.
Right. But a wife.
You're like, Cindy, be my girlfriend for about 6 weeks, and then we can break up so that I can get other girlfriends.
Same kind of philosophy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I got you.
Right. It's like when George Costanza had the picture of the model in his wallet.
That's right.
It was
so he can get invited to parties. Yeah.
The other models would want. Yeah.
It's an open relationship. Yes. Yeah, no, that's good though. But unfortunately, you're right. That's just the way it works, right? And Bruce Valanche, I mean, come on, the guy's legendary. So
yeah, he wrote a book now and he's making the thing, but I had him when, you know.
I
had him when he was
Ice
like,
Pirates.
Yeah, well, when
Academy Awards.
when I interviewed him, he's like, "Well, I'm doing all these interviews because I'm going to write a book, and this is a good way for me just to get it all out, get my head going around it."
Oh,
so,
wow!
He did.
So
He's the only
he
one who's ever
basically
said that wrote the book.
He's using you to pull stories out of him so that he can just take your podcast and then have somebody transcribe it. Well, now AI would transcribe it and he would put it in his book. Oh, how interesting!
Hey,
You guys work in the system.
I've had some people not want to complete opposite. Like, I don't want to go on your podcast because I want to write a memoir, and that's how I say it. And then so I don't want to use up all the stories. I'm like, okay.
That's funny to me because that's a weird. You said that and it just triggered something in my head. Don't people realize that they have an infinite number of stories?
Yeah, I guess, but maybe there's only so many great ones.
No,
you got to have tentpole stories, right?
No, well, maybe, yeah. I mean, if you're going to write a book, I suppose you do. But I mean, even at that, come on. You don't have to tell them your deepest, darkest secrets or anything. It's just going to ask you about, 50-year-old show, for Christ's sake. Oh, yeah, I was on Fantasy Island. I was a hula girl.
Meghan Markle was a briefcase girl on.
Yeah, briefcase. See what I'm saying?
No Deal. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, that's always the. I'm like, give yourself some credit. You probably got bazillion stories going on.
I hear you.
I know you do, Jeff. You just told me some here. See, look at this. I don't even know how many we've got now, except for the one I'm cutting. But other than that, so favorite character from Twilight Zone, if you said, okay, one episode, this is my favorite.
If it was one episode,
I like to pin you down to favorite ones.
Well, I don't know if it's my favorite one, but I do have a Henry Bemis kind of bobbleheadish type thing on my bookshelf. He was time enough. It's time enough at last. That. But I don't know. Yeah, characters. Other than that, I also have if I was to pick a character, I love is the from To Serve Man, the big.
I was gonna say you
Ammonite or whatever, because that to me is the greatest line ever. I'll still just throw that out sometimes. It's like if you're trying to figure something out, and it's like it's a great time. Like you're kind of lost, you can't figure out this one thing, you're trying to solve something, you just go, To Serve Man, it's a cookbook.
Yeah,
that's a great.
That was Ted Cassidy was the guy, right? Wasn't he the tall guy? Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was.
Lurch.
Yeah, great guy. Interesting. That was one of the ones I was thinking of, and then the other one was Burgess Meredith. Was in several episodes, but he wanted to read books and he breaks his glasses, and it's just it's so I mean, nowadays people would be like, who cares, right? But at the time, I think it was it's like, wow, all the time in the world, all the books you want to read, and then now you can't read them, and it was so sad.
Right. Well, it's funny. Like, but if you were, in an apocalypse, right? So you'd only have books, right? So you'd have to kind of. I mean, that's a completely tangent since you said it, and it triggered me. It bothers me about really anything like The Last of Us, Walking Dead, any of them. Because even then, the current Walking Dead, the Walking Dead, Dead Reckoning, or whatever the new Negan Maggie show is, they're like powering up New York, like power is power.
Right.
And it's like, and it was like, it always has bothered me. It's like, how do these random people know how to make power?
At scale, that's the hard part. Yeah.
I mean, if the grid goes out, like we just sit around, and especially now, and just pray it comes on. And it's not 3 days, and it's 2 hours maybe, and it's like the power. If the power goes out, I get it that in the apocalypse the power would be on until it went out. But once it goes out, who there really knows how to run a fire? And then get that electricity out. It just seems like It just seems like a weird thing.
I
It's
hate
just
to tell you this, but any motor can be a generator, Jeff.
well, but how? But like, how do you once it like screws up, you have to know the stuff, right? I mean,
Right, true. You have to know a little bit more. And that's why I'm friends with a guy who works at the power company and works
well,
on
you're assuming he's
substations.
not eaten by the zombies,
Oh
so
no, he won't be. I have faith. He is one tough individual.
I'm just saying, you know,
Yeah, he is well armed and ready to go.
because I
Because
guess
you're in Michigan, you should know that.
gasoline goes bad too after a period of time, so even the cars wouldn't work.
Right, yeah. No, people don't talk about that. You're right. People don't ever talk about the fact that gasoline actually does lose its potency over time.
You know what
It
else
takes a
bothers me?
while.
Zombies that roll down a hill and then get up.
They're not dizzy?
They're not getting up. I mean, it's
Rolling zombies.
it
Hmm.
just it doesn't seem. It seems like they would. Yeah, by the time they would get down, like to lift
Yeah,
back up, your
you got
body
to
would
think
break. It'd be old.
zombies are
You know,
just like children and they're very resilient. And so, yeah, they
maybe.
can fall off a cliff like a kid can fall like off a dresser.
What
Fine.
do you guys think? Comment below.
No one cares about that. There's too many zombie debate boards as there is already. I don't even want to get in a Discord situation with that. The so you like the Twilight Zone. That's good, and that's one of those ones you talk about lasting forever. I mean, that show is it's still played. You can still it's streamed and everything. So let's talk a little bit about streaming. And I am so aggravated with streaming because, having lived through all the transitions here, right, that we just talked about. Now we're into the streaming age, well into the streaming age. Now I would actually venture to say we're probably in the third phase of the streaming stage. And guess what? We have to watch effing commercials to stream things, and all the stuff that you would want is not available. And there's no reason for either one of those things necessarily to be true.
well, they have to make money, so it was never
Come on,
actually. It's
Jeff.
actually no. I mean, it's interesting. Alan Katz, who was on, he was a guest on one of the last few of my episodes. We'll make this evergreen. Alan Katz, who was at one point in time on my podcast.
Very good.
Thank you. Actually talked about this. It was just, there's no money to sustain these streaming services because you need new content, and then they blow through the new content. And so that's why they've kind of come back to like charging us a little bit. But if you really think about it, the problem isn't the $13 for Netflix. It's now I got to pay $13 for that. And for, you used to just pay for, well, I guess cable, you didn't have like HBO or anything, but like you pay for everything individually, right? So
Right.
but if you're just looking at Netflix, I mean, the amount you get for $12, right?
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. And so I don't mind the commercials if they do them at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I think I put on something and it's like, all right, we're going to run.
I go take a leak and then I come back and it's going.
I just don't like it in the middle.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I like it to just, like we've been watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and so on Netflix it goes right through. But then we had to watch, I think, something on, maybe it was on Paramount or Peacock, I think, and then it was like the commercials. So it's like, this takes forever now, and so I don't mind in the beginning. I don't even mind maybe one time. It depends. I mean, you get so much for what you're paying. It really
sure. I agree with you that there has to be
see
some
one movie. You're paying $20 a person.
I'm not paying $20, Jeff.
I know you're not.
We've established that. But I think the other thing is that all this content isn't always available, right? So literally right now, in the phase that we're in, everything could be available. Literally everything that's been produced could be available, but it's not.
Sometimes there's rights issues, so they can't, I don't, like the Larry Sanders Show wasn't available for so long because of the music that was on it. They had to get the rights for that.
Like WKRP had the same problem for a while.
Yeah. So sometimes you can you can either get stuff for free or some stuff is like available, but you have to pay like $2, whatever an episode.
Right.
Like that. And then, there is stuff like Pluto, and like
I do Pluto. Yeah.
And so some of those where it's free but they get you have to watch some commercials, but there's a lot of content on there for free and you're just, just deal with the commercial.
I would say for your pop culture stuff, there's a lot of things on Pluto that you could easily watch for Love Boat. And
yeah, 100%.
I don't think I've ever seen My Three Sons on anything, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think it's on one of those.
Is it? Okay.
Because I watched a bunch of them, yeah.
Okay.
You were talking about earlier, like the black and white to color. It's like the interesting thing about that is that a lot of times, like Lost in Space, which switched, the Dick Van Dyke Show purposely didn't switch,
right?
But the ones that switched, you tended to grow up only with the color episodes,
right? Because they stopped doing the black and white ones. Yeah,
the Dick Van Dyke Show was smart; they kept it all black and white and ended it. So they had to keep it all together, like it's either,
at this point they could colorize everything pretty quickly.
They could, yeah. Especially with AI, they could just put, they could put new people in.
Yeah.
They could put us in.
Let me go look for some, archival footage of Dick Van Dyke at that time period in color. And then they,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So.
And then that was during his alcoholic phase. And so he'd have like, blooms on his nose and things like that.
Right.
That was a bad joke. I'm sorry, Jeff. I apologize.
He wasn't alcoholic.
I am a big Dick Van Dyke fan.
He's like 100. So
he's a very nice gentleman who's been sober for longer than he was, an alcoholic, much longer. And he's a very nice fellow. By the way, grew up in Danville, Illinois, and they have a theater at the high school, Dick Van Dyke Theater. Very nice theater.
There was a long time where you could not type Dick Van Dyke into ChatGPT.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
Dick Dyke.
Oh, gotcha. Really?
Yeah.
I figured that would have been like first thing.
Yeah, that's what I was actually searching. Then I had to change the story.
Because the home video market was championed by pornography. The whole reason you have VHS instead of beta is because of pornography.
Pornography was the leader in most of the technologies that we enjoy. That is fact.
Yeah. I don't know if it was for streaming, though, to be honest with you. I guess it probably was, but it doesn't get a credit for that one. For the VHS beta wars, it gets a lot of credit.
Yeah, a lot of the early technology was, so I've read.
Yeah, I don't want to delve into pornography now just because you looked up Dick Van Dyke. But we need to wrap this up. So give folks, if you want to talk about your podcast, you want to talk about your company, you want to talk about whatever, let's do that. I've been putting your website up there, the Jeff is Funny thing. But if people want to find you, and why would they want to find? Like, if there's anybody who's in a 60s, 70s, or 80s television show watching, Jeff wants to talk to you.
Yeah, if you're famous,
would you say 90s as well, or
anyone who's famous? I mean, it's not that I wouldn't interview Tom Hanks. I just don't think he would come on the show.
Well, if you talk about typewriters, he might, because he's a big typewriter person.
Right. Yeah. I'll send him a typewriter.
You're like, I got this old Smith Corona here, Tom. We can talk all about it. Missing a key.
But yeah, no, I'll talk to anyone famous. I just, it just started the way it started because that was my interest. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I want to talk to people who I want to talk to. And then as I'd be introduced to other people, I'm like, oh, these are cool people. So, it's as I discover people too, but I'll tell you, like the names that you don't recognize when you're looking at my list are probably the most interesting interviews.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
why do you think that is?
Because they're the ones that just were there and they've got all these stories and they were behind the scenes and they're just telling it like it was at that time. And it's, I mean, the the best thing about interviewing people who aren't necessarily actively working today is that they don't have to worry about not getting a job.
Yeah, they're like, all my residuals ran out.
I'm not going to have Tom Hanks come on and he's not going to spill shit about Steven Spielberg. Not that he would anyway, but you know what I mean. Like he's got to get into the next movie.
Yeah, well, I don't think I think he'd be
But you know what I'm
fine.
saying. You know what I'm saying.
I do
But
know what you're saying. Yeah.
that's the mentality of it. So like those types of things are great. So that's why some of the older ones are more fun for me.
Yeah, and you mentioned the technical side of things. So, is there an area of the technical side that you kind of gravitate toward, or?
No, I mean, like my company, Stampede.social is a website. It's a platform that I built for creators like podcasters. So it does commented DM automation. So you can get my episodes by just going on my Instagram and commenting. And then the tool has built in giveaway tools and fan content tracking and some other cool AI stuff as well. So
is it StampedeSocial.com?
Stampede.social.
It's Stampede.social. I missed the dot when you said it. I'm sorry.
Stampede.social. It's with now that you know the theme song.
Yeah, I'm like, that sounds familiar. I'm trying to figure that out. Yeah.
Stampede.social.
Yeah, maybe the dot
you probably heard it on TVs.
That was the Super Bowl ad this year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It had a bunch of people getting trampled.
It does make it difficult to do a Google alert. I will admit that. But
so tell me, I'm sorry, I'm being a goofball, but so Stampede.social it has, so you have a platform, would you say? What would you call it?
It's a platform. It's a tool for Instagram and Facebook, and so for creators, influencers, brands. So
what about Blue Sky? No Blue Sky?
Well, it's a matter. We do have modules where you can get your Blue Sky stats if that's a thing for you. But
okay.
So we have modules built to sort of as these companies open up their APIs, we're able to do more. So
okay. I just was curious.
Yeah. It's all good.
So Stampede.social, that's where you do your day work.
My day job. So yeah. If you're listening and you want
funds all the purchases of books and things.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but
keeps your wife happy, by the way.
Yeah. So you know what? Episode's great. This guy, Rick Goldschmidt, who's Rick Goldschmidt, right? Exactly. So, but he's the Rankin Bass, Rankin Bass.
Oh yeah. I saw that on there.
Yeah.
I meant that was in the back of my head.
So I met him at a Comic-Con. I'm like, oh, will you come on my podcast? And
he's like, everyone all day has been asking me this.
And I was like, well, and so he did. He came on my podcast. So it's like, but those are great. It's like, and you're talking to the historian. It's like, so I remember when Ed Asner, they're like, you can talk to Ed Asner. We just have one condition. I'm like, what's the condition? He wants you to talk about his book. What's his book about? His life. Okay.
That's what I was going to talk about anyway.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, he wrote a book so I can just read it and it's all my homework. Perfect.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That's
love it.
I love the logic there. You can only talk about the book. What is it about? It's about schematics and how electronics have changed from 1940 to 1950. Oh, no, thanks. I'm not talking to Ed then. But yeah, no, it's about his life. Well, of course I want to talk to him about his life. Why else would I want to talk to Ed Asner? I mean, he's not the cookbook, is it?
I could do 20 minutes on Santa Claus with Ed Asner. Easy.
Yeah, exactly.
Ed Asner is one of those amazing people that every generation knows him as someone else. Even my kids know him as Up or Santa from Elf, right?
And then Mr. Stevenson, what was his name in that?
Ed, people know him as Lou Grant, who are older. So it's like,
yeah.
They did voices. He was J. Jonah Jameson, so it's like, it's really interesting when you start to dive into people and that's what I'm saying, certain things, but then you start to look in, you go, oh my God, I didn't even realize you did all these things, because you can be on top of so much,
Right. He probably said, kid, you got to eat.
Exactly.
That's my Ed Asner. Thank you.
Yeah, it was very good. It was
No,
very
it
good.
wasn't. It was horrible. I apologize.
You got spunk, kid.
You got that's right, Mayor. You got spunk. Yeah, I don't think that happens these days.
No. No, no. Well, thank you for having me on your amazing podcast.
Oh, well, thank you for calling it amazing. Most people just say, when am I going to be done with this?
I love, yeah, and you look amazing. You're so cool.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate that compliment. I will take that as a compliment. And
You should get one of these mic covers. It would match your head.
then they wouldn't know. They'd just think it was a magic trick and my face was disappearing when I went behind it, So, but Jeff, thank you so much. Jeff Dwoskin.
There you go.
Jeff
One of those.
Dwoskin. And well, you should switch the W and the O, and I can just call you Jeff Dwoskin.
Here's a little tip. Here's a little trick. When I have a podcast, right? There's a good chance I say my name in the first 15 seconds.
I heard you. I was listening just before we got on, and I totally blanked.
No, I'm kidding. It's something funny. Someone comes to me, I finally know how to say your name. It's like, I've never actually known how to say your name. And they're like, what is it? And they go, Dwoskin. I'm like, that's not how you say my name. and they're like, that's how you say it. And I realize, like, when I get excited and I say it fast on my podcast, I say it wrong. Like,
you say your own name. Well, see, this is your
Jeff Dwoskin.
Much like the Family Ties theme song, you're throwing inaccuracies into the world, right and left. And he does it at speed with Stampede Social. Yeah. Stampede.social. For all of your, inaccuracy needs, you can tell everybody the wrong stuff and get it recognized.
Exactly.
I believe you're going to get a call from the White House in the coming days.
Probably.
Jeff is Funny is the other website. Jeff, thank you so much for being here. And, best of luck in getting the third son.
Yeah. It's going to need more than luck.
Yeah. But hang on just a second. And thanks for being here.